This episode of Nerds on Tap is sponsored by King in the North Condoms by Winterfell.
King in the North.
The only protection when winter is coming.
Why don't you give me fresh beer? You serious?
Welcome back to another episode of Nerds on Tap, the nerdiest podcast fueled by excessive beer consumption. I am one of your three hosts. My name happens to be Chris.
And my name's Jim. I guess I'm number 2.
And my name happens to be Joseph, and I'm number 3.
And Joseph is cold in Texas.
Yeah, the people with the J names are better, just so you know.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
2 J's and a C.
So what's going on, guys? I'm the Lonely Sea.
2 J's and the Lonely Sea.
That's the new name of the podcast.
Dude, that's a fucking band name.
Yeah, fuck, that's our band name, guys. 2 J's and a C.
Oh, man.
The Lonely Sea.
Lonely Sea.
That sucks. Now I'm sad. I'd be in the corner, like, not facing the audience, like, strumming my guitar, not even in tune with the song.
A band name that is definitely like shoegaze.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on, guys? I feel like I haven't seen you since the last episode. How's things?
That's accurate.
Yeah, that's probably true. Things are pretty good. How are things? It's cold here to me. I'm wearing a jacket. I'm in Texas, so any cold is really cold.
By cold, you mean it's probably like 40
No,
degrees?
man. It's like in the 20s right now. For Texas, that's fucking low.
The 20s. Oh, the 20s. It was negative 14 yesterday.
Yeah, it was up here too.
Negative.
I think I'd just die if it got negative. I don't think I'd be able to step outside.
You don't even want to know what your balls do when it's that cold. It's awful.
It turns into like a hardened shell.
It's
to like protect everything.
It goes up and yeah.
Go from an Audi to an innie.
It's just like
Sucks up inside. Yeah, needs protection.
Right on. That's a good way to start the podcast. Ball
All
talk.
right.
Cold
talking
balls.
about
Hard
balls.
balls. So speaking of hard balls, what are we drinking today, Jim? What are you drinking? What kind of beer?
Hey, so I decided to do some new Glarus.
Nice. I love that.
You're probably gonna see a couple different new Glaruses throughout the show. It's definitely one of my favorite brand of beers. They're a good solid Wisconsin beer. I went with one I think I had it once before, but I usually don't do pale ales because usually they kind of taste like you're sucking on a thing of wheat. But this one, even though it's hoppy, it's called Moon Man. They call it a no-coast pale ale. It is pretty hoppy, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of the bitterness afterwards. So that's pretty nice. I like it. So
That's cool. I haven't really been into pale ales that much until recently. Some friends of mine up here started getting me into them, but I had the same problem for a long time. I couldn't get into it because it was so bitter. But I think I'm starting to get used to it.
It's an acquired taste. And Chris, I'm using the Beard Science.
Nice. That was from my wedding. I gave all the guys beer steins with something on it that had to do with some kind of like inside joke between each individual person in the wedding. So good stuff. We were gonna start a band named Beard Science.
Just send me a Beard Science cup, even though I'll never be able to grow a beard.
Now, to one of our listeners, Tom, I kind of stole that from him, which I think he stole that from someone else. So thanks, Tom. Beard Science.
Thanks, Tom. I don't know you, but thanks. So, Joseph, what are you drinking?
I am drinking some stuff from Texas. Drinking Real Ale's Devil's Backbone.
Sounds like a barbecue sauce down there.
It probably
Devil's
is that
Backbone.
also. It's really kind of golden and malty. It's kind of caramelish even. Yeah. So I don't know, man. It's really good. It's the first time I've had it, so I'm still experiencing it. So far, so good. It's only, I think, 8.7, something like that. So a little bit lower than last week, but still good.
Sounds good. It looks good.
This one's less than 5, so it doesn't even say. So now by default, Chris, you need to have a Minnesota beer since we got Texas and
By default.
Wisconsin.
I don't. I have some, but it's not the one that I picked because they're still in the fridge, and that's a long walk. By a long walk, I mean it's like 10 steps, and I don't feel like doing that.
That's
Um,
like 4 or 5 too many.
Instead, so I've got something from Ommegang Brewery, which I had one, I think a few episodes ago too. I had one of the Game of Thrones one, I think. Maybe it actually was probably the first episode, I think. But I've got another
I
one
don't
by
remember.
them, so it's a giant bottle. This one is called Three Philosophers, and it's a Belgian style. It's got some cherry in it. I haven't tried it yet. It's got a cork on it, which is kind of interesting.
Fancy.
So in a minute, you're going to hear a loud pop, and that's the cork and nothing else.
Nice cover.
So yeah, I'm gonna start digging into this thing. Um, so we've got a kind of like three tiny short topics that we're gonna get into. And we're just gonna kind of cover those in just like a couple minutes, and then we're gonna get into the nerd roulette. So, uh, Jim or Joseph, do you want to start while I try to open this freaking thing?
I'm pointing to you, Joe.
Oh, okay. I didn't know where that finger was going. Hey, pop.
You'll know
Hey.
where it's going later.
Haha.
I'm boarding a plane right now.
Mine's kind of a little thing. It's not really anything anybody really gives a shit about, and reasonably so. Mortal Kombat X, the new Mortal Kombat that's coming out, it looks awesome, but they just released a comic for it. I thought it was coming out tomorrow, and it is tomorrow being Wednesday, comic book release day, and that's when it's going to come out in the issue format, but it's already been released digitally last week, I think. I purchased it today just so I could read it, so I could check it out. It's pretty cool. I mean, the art's kind of bland. I mean, some digital comics are just rushed like that, so it's nothing special, but it's got Scorpion in it, and we had just talked about Scorpion, so I figured it was relevant enough. Apparently, he is no longer controlled by Scorpion. Like the guy who was Scorpion, he still has demonic powers, but he's a trainer at a dojo now, and he just looks like a regular dude.
Huh.
But he still wears like the gold armor and all that. So I don't know. It was all right, but it's nothing huge. If you
I
are,
heard it was.
what's up?
I heard it was super bloody.
The comic, yeah, it's pretty bloody. Like he spears somebody right through the face, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, it better be. That's kind of that's how Mortal Kombat got its fame.
Yeah,
Spearing
so
people in the face.
anybody, but it's so dumb. He's like, instead of get over here, he's like, get out of here. And
What?
it just uses such
can't
like
do that.
such cliche shit just to be like, hey,
It's
remember
like
how he
jokes.
says these things?
Remember
But-
that? You remember that? Hey, that's what the whole comic's probably going to be. Hey, you remember that? Where you hit a thing and this thing happened? There's going to be a guy in the background going like, toasty. shit
Yeah,
like
That's
that.
probably why I've heard some other people talk about this one and they really didn't like it. And I wonder if it's because of that. They just said like the writing was poor. It was probably because of jokes like that or something.
It's supposed to be, right? That's Mortal Kombat. The writing, like the backstory was fucking terrible. Like you'd read the scroll, and I just remember like you'd play whatever, and you'd read like the reptile went back to his reptile land, and reptile did so. It's like oh,
Turned back
God,
into a small dinosaur.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It had-
That's
Reptile turned
terrible.
into Yoshi.
Like the focal
Oh.
point of it was the guy with the red bandana, Kenshin. With the red blindfold, and it's about him and his kid, and Scorpion taking his kid over to train him in their dojo, and it's a weird thing. The story is kind of shitty, but if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, it does introduce you to a lot of characters that are going to be in the game. So I don't know how many it's going to be, how many issues. I know 2's out now. I haven't read 2 yet, but read the first one. It was average. So I don't know. Mortal Kombat news.
Cool. All right, Jim, what do you got?
Yeah, my wife and I were talking about Age of Ultron, and it seemed like even though the situation was dire in the first movie, you know, it was a serious situation, they kind of had fun doing it almost. Like it was kind of jokey. I mean, it was still hard, and they tried to make it seem more serious. But like this one, they really seemed like they're adding some like emotional weight to the situation. I mean, Tony Hawk, Tony Stark.
Tony Hawk is the new Avenger. Fuck Vision. We got
That's
Tony Hawk.
hilarious.
The
That's so
skater.
funny. Tony Stark, you know, it's his fault. So he's gonna feel bad, and I guess it looked like Bruce Banner had some. Maybe they were like Ultron. He's like, yeah, I'm here, bitch. But the one funny thing I saw was someone made a comic where it was like someone when they announced that Disney bought Marvel, they were like, "Ah, fuck it, god damn it, they're gonna make it like kid shit." Blah. And then it was like cut to now when they see the first trailer and they use that really creepy version of the
Oh shit,
Pinocchio
yeah.
song. It's like,
That's
yep, because
amazing.
Disney owns that shit, so now we can use it. So look at that. Fuck you.
Fuck. That is
Yeah.
like that's probably one of the best trailers I've ever seen. The with that first one with the song to it. Holy shit! Like that
Super
just gave
effective, yeah.
everyone goosebumps. Like it was just
Like that.
freaky.
If Disney didn't own Marvel, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't be in the trailer because they
Crazy.
own it. So
Well,
take
yeah, it's
that.
kind of funny because I mean they got Joss Whedon the helmet, so you know that it's gonna get dark because a lot of his stuff gets really dark. Like all of his TV shows and stuff like that, it's like halfway through, everything takes a dark turn.
A
So
bunch
of
of
course
people
Avengers is
die.
gonna do it. So
Bunch of people die.
oh
Hulk,
yeah, I'm expecting someone's gonna die in Avengers.
Hulkbuster though, man. How do you think that's
Oh,
gonna
so
do?
awesome.
That's
It
gonna be
looks
great.
amazing. Like, they
Yeah.
showed some more of it too. I was just like, ah.
So I read a theory today because honestly, I think Hulk is just losing his shit, and that's why
Yeah.
they're fighting. But somebody else has a theory that in one of the still frames of the trailer, you can see his eyes, and his eyes are really like red and glazed over. So
Yeah.
they think he's being controlled by Scarlet Witch, or he was
Yeah.
hexed or something.
I don't think so. I think he was crying.
Yeah,
And that
I
sounds
think
stupid, but I think he's really upset in that
no,
point.
I think so too.
Yeah. It seemed more not like a supernatural thing. They're showing the wear on his face. And they really made, I mean, the Hulk look like Mark Ruffalo in the first one. Now he really looks like Mark Ruffalo, and he's got all
Yeah.
of his pores and all of his wrinkles and stuff. It's super awesome.
You can tell, like in the eyes, especially like around this area, you can
Eyes
tell
and
it's
teeth.
definitely Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, the mouth and man, that's probably like the best, some of the best CG for like a character I've ever seen.
All right, Chris, what do you got, buddy?
Sorry, I had to burp. Um, so I know Jim isn't gonna like this, but I wanted to, since they announced that it is definitely happening and it's going into production, I wanted to touch on the Gambit movie because I'm super excited for it.
Hmm.
Um, Jim made the point that Gambit's overrated, and I'm not going to disagree because I think he is. And I think it's because a lot of people like Gambit because other people like Gambit, which is not the reason I like a character, so knock that shit
Yeah.
off. Um, but to me, I think he's just a really cool character because I'm super into villains, and he can kind of walk that line where he could be a hero or a villain at any time
Well,
because he's an X-Men, but he's kind of like a thief first, and he has no problem double crossing anybody. Like he'll double cross the X-Men whenever, as long as it gets him like what he wants. So I think that's pretty sweet.
And he was
he's-
also one of the four horsemen of
That's right.
apocalypse. He was
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
I
It was
think
kind of funny too, is like, so I mean, people can argue Wolverine walks that same line, but where Wolverine, if he does something, the Avengers are always like calling him out on it and getting all pissed off. If Gambit pulls something like that, everyone just kind of accepts it, like, oh, well, he's a fucking asshole. So, he just kind of gets away with shit, which I think is kind of fun. I think having an X-Men that's kind of, not much of a hero, but still kind of in that group, I think is pretty cool. I think it's a pretty interesting. It can be an interesting character if he's actually done right, which a lot of writers haven't used him to his full potential, but it can be done.
I think to that point though too is he's definitely a '90s character to that
Oh
to
yeah,
that extent. He's the anti-hero, and that was kind of the big thing back then. And I think that's kind of my problem with Gambit is he's very into that '90s aesthetic that I don't really like that much.
right. He definitely needs kind of like an overhaul, especially like in the comics and stuff. But it'll be interesting when they do X-Men. Is it 92? I'm sure he's going to
Yeah,
be part of that, and I think that might be cool because I'm sure that's going to be really close to like animated, X-Men.
yeah,
So
I'm looking forward to that.
Best looking Gambit was when it was drawn by Joe Madureira, and he had the long hair and shit, and he just looked fucking awesome.
So yeah, let's get into. So the big reason we're talking about it is Channing Tatum's doing the movie, and a lot of people are pissed off about it, and I think they're being lame.
There's just some
Um,
people who still think Channing Tatum is Channing Tatum from a couple years ago, but this is
Right.
one Jump Street fucking hilarious Channing Tatum who totally redeemed himself and shit.
Yeah, he's shown that he can do multiple things, and he's in that movie coming out now with was it Steve Carell, and I think they won. They're
Foxcatcher.
nominated or
Oh
won some
yeah.
awards or something for it
They were
already.
nominated, yeah, and that's Mark Ruffalo too. They were nominated for some Golden Globes. I don't think they got any, but that's supposed to be a good, really good
What
movie.
was
So I
it?
mean,
Fox Chaser? Fox Catcher?
Catcher.
Foxcatcher.
Okay.
Catcher.
I did not realize that was Steve Carell at first. That blew my fucking mind.
He had a big old fake nose, and he's
Yeah.
a total dick.
I think Channing Tatum's got it too. I think they have a fake nose on him too.
That's all you need in Hollywood, a good fake nose.
But anyway, obviously he can do more stuff than people give him credit for, and he looks the part. I mean, if you look at a picture of Gambit and him side by side, like the face and stuff, he honestly looks way closer to it than was it Taylor Kitsch was the
Yeah.
guy that played him in X-Men
And
Origins
that
and
guy
was
sucks.
horrible. Yes, that was it was so bad.
That guy was in
s-
fucking Battleship. Fuck that guy.
So I mean, anything Tatum can do is going to be better. He doesn't have to even try. But what was cool about this is that he was the one that actually started it. Like he was the one that said, "I want to play Gambit in a movie."
Yeah.
And then somebody from Fox was like, "Oh shit, that might be cool," and then approached him with it. But I mean, he was the one that kind of started. So I mean, obviously, it's a character that he actually likes and he actually follows and understands and stuff like that. And we don't get a lot of that. Usually it's somebody gets, a part in this movie. Like you get freaking Halle Berry playing Storm and you're like, what the fuck?
No, more importantly, Holly Berry playing fucking Catwoman.
Catwoman.
Jesus. Right, exactly. So, I mean, we've got a guy who knows the character, who loves the character, and is going to now be playing it. So, I mean, I can only really see good things as far as that goes.
Well, that's
And
also
it
what we
turns
thought
out-
about Ryan Reynolds playing Deadpool, but
Well, I think
even
honestly,
then,
I think
like the
Fox
studio can
ruined
fuck it
that.
up. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're moving forward with that one too, with just a solo one with him, and they did that.
Will he
I'm
get to
sure-
talk this time?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's seen the test footage, and that was freaking amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty
Yeah.
good.
So if the movie's like that, and it's being written by the guys that did Zombieland, so I
Oh,
think
okay.
that's like the perfect team to do it.
Right on.
But I mean, you know what, Channing Tatum too. I did some research on it, and he's from like southern Mississippi, and he apparently spent a lot of time in like New Orleans and stuff. So, I mean, he's really kind of in tune with that culture and stuff.
He's down with that. He's
Right.
chanting all over his Tatums.
He's channeling his Tatums, and and the people of New Orleans, and he's gonna chanting his inner Gambit. So I think it's gonna be good.
No, he gets the nerds on tap seal of approval. I think he'll be
Yes.
fine.
We will
It's a
seal
shitty
his
character
approval.
anyway, so who cares?
Fuck off. Damn it.
How do you think they're going to do the costume? Do you think they'll keep it?
Yeah, put the stupid head thing where it just stops here and like has a face frame and then his hair's out. That's a real good look.
With
don't know.
with the pink
they
and the
probably-
blue also.
Perfect.
They probably won't do the head thing, but I almost want them to find a cool way to actually pull it off. That would be
Okay.
awesome if they could do it. I
So
don't
as
think
long
they
as he
can.
has a trench coat, and as long as they don't do the thing they did in fucking Wolverine Origins where they have to give his trench coat like an origin story, like it's given to him by like Ma and
Right.
Pa Kent on a fucking this was my son's coat. You should wear it. How about he just likes leather fucking jackets because he rides motorcycles? They
How
don't
about he
need an
just
origin
fucking-
story for his leather jacket.
He stole
Jesus
it when
Christ.
he stole everything else.
Come on.
Jesus.
I'm gonna go on record saying that X-Men Origins Wolverine is one of the worst fucking movies ever.
What's worse, that or X3?
Ugh. Origins.
Really? You
Yeah.
really think so?
Origins is worse.
Wow.
For
Yeah,
so many reasons. I mean, X-Men 3 is terrible, but now it doesn't exist, so who cares?
that's true. At least they kind of
We erased it.
I wonder if they'll
It's like-
show him in Apocalypse, because they've been going back and forth between if he'll show up in that first or if he'll do a solo film first. So, oh,
Hmm.
Apocalypse is gonna be great though. I'm looking forward to that.
Who isn't? Okay, let's do Nerd Roulette.
Yes.
Nerd roulette. All right, I'm gonna fire that up. Jim, in case we have new listeners or old listeners that pay no fucking attention, why don't you tell them what Nerd Roulette is?
So here's the thing, guys. We don't prepare topics in advance, except for when we do like this short little, talk about little stuff that comes out. We like to do things off the cuff. We like to make this feel like it's like a couple of friends drinking beers, talking about random shit, because it is. So we have a master list that Chris is gonna pick randomly, and we know what's on the list, but we don't know what we're gonna talk about until right when it's announced. So let's do this.
All right. All right. Our topic is sweet. What is your first comic book experience?
Oh.
That's gonna be a fun one.
So, so how are we
So give it
starting
some
it?
thought.
Yeah, man. You know what? I think the first, I'm sure there's other times when I bought comic books, but when I really started getting into it was my dad and I started collecting what they called non-sports cards, which was just like the comic Fleer 94, like Marvel trading cards.
I remember those.
So, yeah, so we were going to like a comic book store and we were buying boosters and trying to collect like I have entire sets of like the X-Men 94 Fleer ones and some Spider-Man sets too. So we were going there and my dad would buy Star Trek Next Generation cards and I would buy like the comic book ones. And right around that time was Death of Superman.
Very cool.
So everyone was buying comics. So it was one of those things where you just had to buy, what was going on. So
Yeah, my grandmother actually bought me Death of
Right?
Superman.
yeah, you
bought it.
would get that. I got like 2 copies of the white bag, like from relatives that year.
Nice.
And then I had one of my own, so I have 3 of them. Of course, they're not worth anything.
Death of Superman. Who is your favorite Superman?
Of the ones, Last Son of Krypton, the one with the big like
The
Macho
big,
Man
like
glasses.
yellow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you.
I like.
What is his name? His name. He was like the Eradicator or something like that.
Yeah, the Eradicator. I liked him
Yeah.
because he just straight up killed people.
Right on.
I thought Superboy was a little pretty Latino piece of shit. I didn't like him. He's like, oh, Superboy. Shut up, asshole.
Wait, what did you say? I didn't even hear you.
I think it's
He's just making fun of your Mexicanness.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. So that really started my comic book collecting career. I got in the Death of Superman. I bought, all the funerals for a friend, and then when he came back with the long hair, I have that issue with like the gold foil raised, whatever. And then the bottom fucking fell out, and we realized it wasn't worth anything. But it was still fun to read. But
That one he had the black on with the like silver sign and everything.
I don't have the actual death issue, but I have when he went to heaven or whatever. I have the white one.
Yeah.
It was like right after because you couldn't find the black bag one anywhere at that point. But I remember when he came back, that was a big deal. And it's funny because I'm not really a DC guy. I'm more of a Marvel guy. So I'm trying to remember when I guess, yeah, but that was really my first time was reading those kind of comics. And I think before that was just a couple random Batman comics. I remember when my mom was in the hospital getting some kind of surgery, we went to like a Walgreens and bought stuff for me to do. And I think one of them was a Batman coloring book and a Batman comic book. And actually, thinking about it, fuck, that issue was right after he killed Jason Todd.
Oh,
When the Joker killed
When
Jason
Joker
Todd.
beat him to death.
Yeah, with the crowbar.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
It was either that or one of the times when I think Scarecrow used the fear toxin to make him relive it or something like that.
Man.
And I don't know which one it is, honestly, because it got destroyed because I like put it in my toy box or whatever because it was so young. And then it got just like crumpled or whatever. And I remember, yeah, I think that's even earlier than that is that those Batman comics. And I remember being really frustrated with the Batman coloring book because I didn't understand the comic version of the Batman at that time. I still thought he wore all black. So I'm like just coloring furiously with just my black crayon, just being like, God damn it, what the fuck? Not realizing, like, on the cover, it's like, oh, he's gray and blue. And I was like, I remember being confused that why was he wearing gray and blue on the front? But
my comic story, like the way it started is almost identical to Jim's in that my dad and I used to go to the comic book store to purchase trading cards. of different sorts, like Marvel Masterpiece, just any of those old Marvel Flair cards or whatever. And yeah, he also bought the Star Trek ones, but his were the original Star Trek ones versus the Next Generation, but he still bought some of those also. So
My daddy got the original too.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah,
basically, our
those
stories
came
are
around at the same
identical, and
time.
we have the same dad, and we're brothers. So we just found out this this episode. So
I can tell.
We look so alike.
right, I just have to put my glasses back on, and we're twins almost.
Joseph, did you lose your soul patch? Is that still there?
Did it fall off?
They're there.
Oh my God! It's oh no, it's barely there. I think.
It's kind of there.
Dislike.
So you're not gonna grow a beard if you keep shaving that thing.
I can't grow a beard anyway. Like that's as much as it goes. But
I don't have a soul patch. I just have a mole that grows hair right there.
it works out.
Skin cancer. Okay, go ahead.
But some of my first comics were Spider-Man comics, definitely. X-Men, 90s X-Men comics for sure. Some super.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Sorry. I remember one of the. I remember getting a comic book like in the 90s when they had the you bought a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut and you got like an X-Men
Yeah.
comic.
Yeah.
That was one of the
Those are
X-Men
the
comics I
best.
totally had too. Yeah.
Were those the ones that you could? They were like comic books based on the cartoon series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was raised completely with comic books in general on TV with the 90s X-Men and animated Batman series. And
Yeah.
then, just various comics here and there. I had no idea, like, what I was collecting or anything like that. So none of my issues were really, like, sequential. It was just like, here's a random issue of Spider-Man. Here's a random issue of Superman. Here's a random issue of Generation X, whatever that was. And then,
Generation X.
yeah.
Strong guy.
No, that was X Factor.
Yeah, that's actually
God damn it. That's the same thing.
Generation
That's-
X was like a Banshee was the leader of it, and White Queen also, and
That's
and it was a bunch of
That's
like
right.
kids.
right, and it was
Yeah.
a whole
Like,
failing
Didn't they try
saga.
to make a TV show based on that?
Yeah, they had like
Yes.
a pilot episode, and
So
it failed
bad.
so bad.
Oh,
I
Yes.
totally fucking watched
worst
that
thing
when it was
ever.
on. Yeah, it was awful. I remember getting all excited because it was on the cover of TV Guide because my parents got TV Guide, and we sat down to watch it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
I think if they did a relaunch of that in the day and age right now, where it's like Gotham and fucking Constantine and Flash, everything else, then it could be successful. Even though those characters aren't as well known, I think they could really pull it off now. They won't
just-
because no one
you
gives a
could-
shit.
No, and you just couldn't do superhero TV back then. There was just not. There's no budget and no special effects. I mean, look at
All
the
you get
Flash
is
'90s TV
Secret
show.
World of
It's
Alex Mack.
So bad. Yeah.
That was as good as
that
it
was
got.
like the high end of like
Yeah.
CG.
Turns into a
The
goo.
silver puddle.
Yeah.
You know what? It probably didn't help either that for that pilot, they barely had any actual characters from the comics. They had Banshee, and I think they had the White Queen, except they didn't have her boobs hanging out everywhere, from what I
Which
remember.
That's where they
mistake
failed.
right there.
Yep.
Come on.
And I think none of the students, I don't think, were actual characters except for, I think they might have had skin. But I think he might have been the only one. I think everybody else was like new characters.
Wasn't
That's
there
shitty.
Jubilee? I
I don't
it was
think
so
they had
long
her.
ago.
No.
So long ago.
They might have had Mondo, but
A lot of those X teams. The only reason I know them is from those trading cards, is because they would always have all the X teams like Excalibur and X Factor.
Yeah, that's how I learned a shitload about a lot of those characters was reading their description on
Dude.
the back.
Yeah, I would watch the Spider-Man cartoon, and then I would have my binder of cards. Yeah, and then I would compare storylines with how they were adapting it in the cartoon because it would go through the Clone Saga and all that shit.
Mhm.
And then I would use it like an encyclopedia, basically, so I would know what they've changed and what they do, and it actually made it more enjoyable because it was like reading a Wikipedia, basically, of like
Right.
what was going on in the comic book. So I knew all the in jokes and stuff and how they changed things. It was interesting.
Yeah, like their history. You knew if they were dead in the comics
Yeah.
and everything. You're like, what the
Right.
fuck? This guy's dead.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be here.
Yeah,
I wish I would have kept some of those cards. I gave them to a buddy that was collecting them a long time ago. I think, if I remember right though, like every pack you opened, you were guaranteed to have a fucking card of Bishop every goddamn time.
Yeah.
I had so many of him, it was just stupid.
Or like Albert the android. Oh, I got Albert again.
Right.
Awesome. That's kind of like
Um,
right now with Marvel Dice Masters. If you guys are familiar with that, it's a dice game, and you buy it in booster packs. And like I got like a million Psylocks, and it was all the same one. So like I got all this extra dice and like 4 of the same card. I'm like, oh, cool.
Hey, have you
But yeah,
played?
I keep getting Bishop. I keep getting Bishop.
Have you
so it
played
lives on.
Marvel? I think superheroes. I don't know what it's called. The video game, the MMO type game that's out now, the Marvel one.
No, I haven't. I think I signed up and I think I downloaded it, but I never actually got around to playing it.
I played DC Universe Online on PS3 for a little bit.
Yeah, I played it when
That
it
was
first came
bad.
out for PC. It was a lot of fun at first. I played it with my roommate at the time, and we had a good time. But there just wasn't enough to do.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's kind of bland.
Yeah.
It really takes like the kind of the. Well, I mean, WoW jazzes it up now, but it's kind of the collect these things in tournament and then do this
Right.
and collect it again and fuck it.
But essentially,
So-
the Marvel one's kind of like just to stay on that tangent. It's like Diablo Marvel style, basically.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome.
I love Diablo.
I haven't
played
I haven't
Diablo all the
played it
time.
much more than maybe like 5-10 minutes, just because it came right after playing Diablo for a while, so I was like, I don't want to play more Diablo. But I don't know. I'm
Love
sure
Diablo.
it's worth jumping into. It's a free to play game. It's just one of those like in-app purchase shit. If you want more characters and whatnot, and you don't want to wait for fucking ever, then buy whoever you want.
You know what? I kind of hope that in-game purchase stuff, like I like the whole free-to-play thing, but I kind of hope that stops because it gets fucking annoying, especially if you guys play like Well, I don't know if you guys do. I play Hearthstone every once in a while, which is done by Blizzard, the
Blizzard,
people that do
yep.
World of Warcraft. So it's
I've been-
basically
I've been thinking
Magic the
about getting into
Gathering,
that.
but Blizzard. But anyway, it's super obvious when you get when you're playing against somebody who's bought some cards.
Yeah,
Because you have, your one deck and you've got some good cards, you have some regular run-of-the-mill cards, and then you get against somebody who just puts legendary after legendary after legendary, and you're just like,
Yeah.
fuck it. Like, I might as well just concede right now. There's no point.
That's
So,
not
yeah.
always true though. Like you can still beat legendary cards or whatever with a basic deck. It's just all
That's
about
true.
the timing and the placement. And what kind of what hero do you play, or what class?
I do Rexar, who's the hunter.
Mm.
You know what? I actually listened to that BS Excluded one where I think it was Chris was talking about how he's playing Hearthstone and he was trolling somebody with his deck, and
With-
somebody actually messaged him and started
Yeah,
bitching him out.
yeah.
So
People get so
my
upset.
my hunter deck is actually really similar. It definitely trolls people. So basically, for the first like 6 or 7 rounds, I do nothing except destroy their cards, and then once I get to like 7 or 8, I put out a whole bunch of like 1 mana crystal cards, and then I throw all these buffs on them, and then just take the dude out in like one swoop. So I get some hate too.
Yeah, his deck was basically, it revolved around the priest mind controlling shit. So
Oh,
just
yes.
completely trolling them. Or
I used to
before
do
that,
that
he
before.
he played the shitty ass warlock zoo decks where it's just like throw everything out as fast as you can. I liked.
I think it's funny
Go ahead.
with a lot of those card games. Like anytime you play like a control type deck, it just pisses the other person off so much because it's like I can't fucking do anything. Like,
Someone
what are
just
you
starts,
doing?
They just start spamming the threat button, the threat emote,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
over and over.
I like
over.
about that game that you can't actually chat to the person.
I do too.
You have to emote to them because that just makes it hilarious when people get upset.
I like that too because otherwise, the only thing that you're gonna see if you can actually openly talk to people, you're just gonna see people like, "I'm gonna rip your pussy open" and like all kinds of shit like that. Which is like that's the shit that you get in like World of Warcraft and Diablo. Is
Are you
that
one of
kinda
those people
shit.
who
It's
play as
stupid.
females when you're playing online? You play as
I
women?
do sometimes with Warcraft because man, the models look way better than the guys. The guys are clunky just look like shit sometimes. They just redid everything though, which
Yeah, I
like they
saw
all
that.
look better, but still,
I
some of
don't.
the models just look better than others.
I just never could get into that whole role playing as a female thing. It's like if I want to be a
Yeah, I
fucking
don't do
hero, I
the.
want to be a hero because I'm a dude and I want to imagine myself in that role, not necessarily I want to imagine myself
Right.
possibly having periods when I'm trying to do battle.
That's awful. No,
You think
I
night
for
elves use leaves
RPGs
for tampons?
for RPGs I actually like playing as females. I don't know. I think it's part of it because if you can choose gender, I there's not enough main character female video game characters, so I don't know. I like to see it.
Mass
But
Effect,
what's
that's
nice
about
is
the main one anyway.
Yeah, I played when I tried Mass Effect for a little bit. I did play as a femme shep, and then I think one of my favorite games from the last year was the new Tomb Raider. Was really really well done, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
enjoy
don't
playing.
mind playing a female main character. I just if I have the option, I'm generally going to go guy because I want to put myself in those shoes. And I don't know.
I go female for some reason. I like a good badass female. So
it's kind of
So
like the Joss Whedon syndrome. You just want like
yeah,
that badass female to exist, so you make
yeah.
it exist. So,
I've
Right.
heard people talk about that and like asking them the reason why they play those female characters, they're like, "Well, it's just nicer to look at their ass from behind or whatever." And I'm like, it's a fucking it's a virtual ass. It doesn't matter.
When I played Saints Row 3 and I played as a female and she was a badass like with shaved side heads and she had a Russian accent and she's just a total badass. I fucking love her. Like she's one of my favorite video game characters and it's totally like you make the character, but she's so awesome. I don't know.
When you
well, yeah,
play
like
I love playing as her.
I
when
just made I had a Draenei Paladin in Warcraft, and it was like a male, and they're big and bulky. I
Oh,
had
the
him for a
Draenei
while.
female are way cooler.
Yeah, I had him for a while, and I was just like, he looks dumb. Like,
Yeah.
even though they did the upgrade, like just didn't like how he looked. And then I switched it to a female, and they look just badass with all that like the plate armor and everything. It just looks really cool. So
Chris, were you
yeah,
part of that when I was playing WoW? We made that alternate on the alt different server, and we made that guild called Hooves the Boss,
yeah,
and it was all Draenei.
with all Draenei. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
we
part
were all
of that.
female. Yeah,
All
that well, you
female
were part of that.
Draenei.
That was awesome. Hooves the Boss. That was amazing.
Who's the boss?
when I was playing WoW originally, I made a guild called I think it was called Clockwork, and my brother and I were the leaders. We were two gnomes called Tick and Talk, and it was fucking great. Like we got such a big following. It was awesome at the time.
That's fucking sweet.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I just when you play as a female character, do males ever text you or send you tells that are like, "Hey, are you ASL? Are you actually female?"
ASL.
I don't know if ASL is around anymore.
ASL. Is that still a thing?
That was like AOL Instant Messenger.
That's why Joe keeps dropping out because he's still using America Online.
He's in a chat room.
I'm on a 56K modem and I'm chatting
He's on-
right now while we're
He's
talking.
in IRC right now and AIM,
Holy
and
shit.
he's talking to chicks. ICQ.
That I think it's maybe happened to me a couple times, but not very often. I'm one of those people though that I have probably like 20 characters. It's ridiculous because I get bored really easily. So like I've got a few like max level people, like maybe 4 or 5, and then a shit ton of like really low level things because I'll be like, hey, I leveled this to 10, and then I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this one now.
Yeah.
And so I have like tons and tons.
It's funny. I had my main, my murder face, my warrior.
Murder
and
face.
then- but I totally miss my bank alt Steve Brule and like my crazy. He was a orc warlock engineer called Fin Fang Foom. I love that character. I love playing as him. Hey Chris, so what was your first comic book?
yeah, comics.
Shit. So I have a whole bunch of almost first experiences, and then I have my first experience.
kind of like your sex life.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a whole bunch of almost first time
This close.
having sex.
This
And-
close, and then
It's like
and
you
then I
had
finally
you had
achieved it.
comic blue balls, and
day.
then what finally broke your comic virginity?
First, I gotta talk about my failures first.
we're not.
I think I don't remember if this is the first thing I got or the second, but like Jim said, Death of Superman, it was a huge deal when it came out.
That pulled everybody in. Like,
Yeah, and my grandmother bought it for me she was one of those people that if she thought this thing would be worth money, like in the
yeah,
future, she'd buy it.
right.
Like she always bought coins every year, like the, minted ones, like the
Total
special
racket.
cases. Yeah, I've
Total
got one
racket.
from like every year. starting
Collector
from, like,
plates. Look at these
80.
plates. Star Wars collector's plates.
Right.
Collect the whole set.
So she got that. And I remember reading it a little bit, but at that age, my dad was like, it might be a little too adult for you. So I didn't get to read it all the way then. And I think I just like, I wasn't that into comics for a long time growing up, even though my parents read them.
Because when you're a kid, you're stupid.
But yeah, my mom was super into Fantastic Four, and my dad read a lot of Iron Man. But I just never really was into it at the time. But once I started playing video games and I started playing like Super Nintendo and stuff, and I got really into Street Fighter for a while, and then they made a comic book, and I found it at a Schnucks, which is a grocery store in Illinois, and I still have it. It's the first issue of the Street Fighter comic book, and it looks like shit, but and it's bad. I don't think it even lasted more than maybe 12 issues. It might not have even gone that far.
It's
But
funny.
I think that was my first real exposure to it.
That's
If
crazy.
you played video games.
Yeah, because I played video games.
If you played video games, it was hard to avoid comics because they kept making video games,
Right.
especially like if you bought LJN.
Yeah, and that shit was before like Udon, like comics, like the Street Fighter comics that are done by Udon are just fucking amazing and they look great. So that was probably crappy comics, probably along the lines of what they did for the Power Rangers comic books, where they just looked so terrible. And they were the ones where like they had their symbols inside the little white crystals on their chest, which is like, that's not how the show is. Why would you ever do that?
Yeah.
Shit.
It's
No,
just cheap ass cash-ins. Every coloring book that you would get for Power Rangers, that it would have that stupid symbol in their white. And you're like, that's not what it fucking looks like.
fucking Sagat has these big fucking buck teeth, and he looks like he looks kind of like Rat Trap from Beast Wars. It's hilarious.
Oh, Beast Wars.
Ryu looks really Ryu, depending on where you're from, because some people get really pissed off about his name. Looks super white and looks pissed off at all times. And Ken has pretty much the exact same face as Ryu, except he just has blonde hair.
So they were accurate on that. He's just
So
a
bad.
reskinned Ryu.
Right. Oh man. Yeah, it was bad. But you know what? Later, it might have been around the same time actually. I'm trying to think. I think I was actually maybe around 8 or 9 years old, and the neighborhood that I lived in we would do like a block like garage sale where everyone in the neighborhood had a garage sale the same day. And there was a couple of houses down, a bunch of like teenagers lived there. They're like older teens and stuff. So me and a buddy of mine would always go over there because they would have like, all the cool toys and stuff like that. Like I got all my Transformers there and stuff for like a nickel. And I found they had a package that they were selling for 10 cents, and it had X-Men #1, Uncanny X-Men #1, and #2 in the same sleeve. And I didn't know shit about comics, so the buddy I was with, we bought it together because we were kids, we only had nickels. Sound like I'm fucking 40. So he took #1, and I got #2. But
Back in my day, we only had nickels.
But
And
now
we
I'm
loved
like,
them.
holy shit, like that's cool. I've got Uncanny X-Men #2. It was the first print. They sold it for fucking, basically 5 cents. I got it for 5 cents at a goddamn garage sale. So that's pretty awesome. And like years later, I went and like looked at that, and I was like, what, X-Men's pretty cool. And then the animated series was going and everything, so that got me into it. So that got me into X-Men as a whole. And then I started, going all the way back to issue 1, and then read all the way up to current. So yeah, I think that would have been the big thing that got me into, that kept me into comics, was I think getting that comic and then kind of rediscovering that I had it a couple years later. Like, oh shit, I forgot about this. So yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that X-Men got a lot of people into comics, a lot of kids into comics, just because of how
Yes.
varied it was, especially the '90s X-Men, because
Yep.
it wasn't they went away from the having identical suits and them all being the same color, and they all had their own identities, and
Yeah.
it was just a variety of bright colors, which is amazing to a child. And then once they start selling the toys, like you're hooked, like you can't get away from it. And X-Men have just been all over the place. Even still to this day, there's tons of X-Men comics of different sorts. It's like Uncanny X-Men, Wolverine the X-Men, Spider-Man and the X-Men. It's just whatever and the X-Men, and you're good to go. Like, that's what got a lot of us started. I remember these cards that I think they were X-Men cards. It might have just been Marvel cards, but they had, like, on the back of the card, like, they had these awesome pictures on the front, but on the back of the cards, they had, like, it would show what the person, like, a kind of a wireframe image of the person. So even if they were wearing a suit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
remember
have that
those.
entire set.
Yes, I have that whole set too.
They had Transformer ones like that too. I had some of those.
And my favorite part about it was like that they, like, let's say Juggernaut, like he has that giant dome helmet, but
What a
his
fine helmet.
wireframe, his wireframe would just be like his little head with his body. And I always thought that was the coolest thing as a kid, that I actually got to
is cool.
see under the suit for a change.
Right.
I don't know what it was about that.
Shit, that's cool.
That was just one of my earliest card memories. And then, of course, the Spider-Man ones. Oh, what about the ones, the Marvel ones, if you guys had them, where it was like, if you had the basic, like, a 3x3, card sheets, you set them all up, and it would be like, I don't know, Avengers or something, and you'd have all these different cards with different characters on them, but they'd all be in one interconnecting scene. Do you remember those cards?
I
Yeah,
have
very
those, the Spider-Man
vaguely.
ones.
I don't think they weren't just Spider-Man ones. There was a Spider-Man section of it, but I think it was also other.
Because I have a Spider-Man one that's like that, and they're all interconnected, like they make one giant.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
thing.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah, is that
Yeah.
all Spider-Man? That whole series?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Then maybe that is what I'm thinking of.
I think I did have some of those, honestly. I don't think I ever was able to complete it, though. I don't think I ever completed
cool.
any of the pages, but
You know, it's funny. This Spider-Man set in particular was incomplete with me for a long, long time, and then my mother-in-law went to Goodwill, and they had a bag of just random cards, and actually they were
Shit.
all from this set. And then I find out as I opened it, it was a complete set. So then I was
That's
able to
awesome.
finally. I had like 6 or 7 missing cards, and I was able to finally complete it after like, I don't know, X amount of years.
that's awesome too that she knew to get it when she
She just saw him and she's like, "Hey, he likes stupid shit like this, so I'll grab these."
I love.
He likes kid things.
I love when parents accidentally do something amazing, and you're like, "Oh my God, you're the best
Right.
mom and or dad ever."
And they're like, "What?"
All right,
Oh,
so
it was
94 Fleer Ultra is the one you're talking about. So you have like cable,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
here, and you look on the back and you got the wireframe. And it
Yeah.
tells them,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's
the
exactly-
affiliation and the affiliation and like their powers and stuff. Yeah,
Oh my
I used to pore over this and just so like in the X-Men cartoon when all of a sudden they would do a storyline with Cable, I'd be like, I'd page through my thing and they go, oh, okay, so he was raised in a distant future and Cable traveled through time and space to bring paramilitary techniques to our era to aid our struggle to mutant kind of survival.
And you would
Group
cite that.
affiliation, X-Force, 6-pack, yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like an instant expert. So when they do something wrong on the cartoon, I'm like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah. I remember the 6-pack because I remember one of the characters who was in it with Cable was like, I think his name was Kane or something. And he had like a red jacket on and metal arms. And because
oh yeah.
strong
fucking
guy, hell
strong
yeah.
guy. What a piece of shit. It's the worst
Hold
fucking.
on. What was his name? He had a stupid name. I remember the
I don't remember.
shit.
What were you talking about? Metal arms?
He had a
Oh,
red jacket and he had 2 metal arms.
Yeah,
I think he had a headband too, didn't he?
No, he just had like dark, like black hair. I just
Okay.
remember because I had the toy of him also, and he had metal arms. And they could turn in, like his hands could turn into like propellers and shit, or like blades or something. I don't know. I think his name was
So
Kane.
basically, he's really ineffective unless you're on a boat that doesn't have a motor already.
I'm pretty sure he didn't use the propellers for. Oh man, shit. What is that guy's
Check
name?
it out.
Cyber?
Cyber. Yeah,
Cyber.
he was a Spider-Man villain, right?
No, that's all.
I don't recognize him. I don't know who the fuck that is.
All X-Men.
Oh no, he was a Wolverine villain. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I
He
think he
kind of
was.
looks like Black Bolt with
I think he
metal
was
arms.
made or he was like infused with adamantium or something.
Yeah, it says that on the back.
All right,
Oh.
I remembered.
What a knockoff.
Do you remember Spider-Man? Did you guys ever see the giant size 30th anniversary Spider-Man? I think 375. It was like the 30th anniversary of Amazing Spider-Man, and it's this gold cover with Venom like wrestling against Spider-Man, and that is one of my favorite
No, I've never
comics
seen
ever.
that.
Yeah, like I found like almost a pristine copy of that the other day, and it was cheap, so I had to grab it because I have a copy, but it's all torn up because as a kid I didn't give a shit and I didn't know what I was doing. But now it's just something to have, just to hang up, just to
Right.
look at because it's beautiful.
Okay. So since we're talking about these cards, and since we brought up Gambit, we have to talk about the Fleer 95, the Spring Break series of cards that they had.
Oh, I remember
These are gonna be
those.
great.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There he is.
See, it would be good to be Gambit. Who wouldn't
Look
want
at that.
that? Who wouldn't
Yeah,
want
except he can't
chick
touch
in a
her
bikini
at
with
all.
a
Yeah, I know he
skunk
can't touch her.
haircut?
Can't touch her.
Did you guys ever
dum-dum.
read the Age of Apocalypse where Rogue and Magneto hooked up and
Yes, that
he-
was so
yes,
weird.
he could touch her because he put like a magnetic
like,
field
around
around
his, like, skin.
himself so that they could
Yeah.
touch or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did a lot of touching.
Oh, look at
Yes,
that!
I had that one. Holy shit, I remember.
For those of you just listening, this is the one with the glistening, shirtless Wolverine using his claws to seductively put hot dogs in his mouth.
He's the worst
mean-
cook ever.
Jesus
God.
Christ, these cards.
Those
these are
cards.
so funny.
I forget that people can't see what we're seeing sometimes, so we need
Yeah,
to.
that's what.
I'll start to describe
It's
things
okay
as I'm
because
looking
they
at them.
usually cut that out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
Man,
remember that one.
That's just not that ass isn't enough for me. Like she's black. It should be
You know
bigger
what,
than
though?
that.
That's even better than Halle Berry, though. So
Oh, it's way better than
not-
Halle Berry. But even so,
There's-
like
And there's another Rogue too, where she's building a sandcastle. She shouldn't be showing that much skin. That's dangerous.
yeah,
I'm okay with it.
Anybody gets near her, then their powers are gone.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. She really shouldn't be showing that much skin.
You know what bothered me about X-Men
She
3?
should be wearing a wetsuit.
They took away Rogue's powers before she did anything with them, like at all.
Right, and then randomly in Days of Future Past, her powers are back. Like,
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get some cards because I'm jealous of Jim showing off his
Bitch.
cards.
and we're back from the break.
All right.
Because me and Joseph had to grab some shit.
It was still recording.
Joseph,
I'm gonna go ahead and
Joseph.
show you the cards that I picked up.
I got to show you this too, but
Oh.
you go first.
Okay. This is also from the I think it was the 94 series that Jim was showing with the wireframe stuff. This is the card I was talking about with Juggernaut. How it's
Nice.
like
Oh, he's got it too.
shows- Yeah, like it shows his
They look
head.
different.
It doesn't wireframe his fucking helmet. And I always thought as a kid that was genius. I don't know what about it enthralled me so much. And then and then we've got Gambit. That's pretty badass looking one.
Yes.
That
The
is a
best
good-looking
X-Men
Gambit.
ever.
Like that's a cool looking Gambit. Like if they can pull shit like that off and have some moves where he's just fucking throwing cards everywhere, it'd be
Yeah.
great. One of my favorite characters ever, Mimic.
Mimic.
Yeah.
Oh,
just-
shit.
I love the idea of Mimic, and in the in some of the I can't remember what the comic series is that he's in or was in. It was like the X something.
No, he was originally in Uncanny, and then I don't know if they included him in something else. Well, yeah, they included him in something else later, and he had like a beard, and he was super muscly and stuff. But originally, he was in Uncanny as someone that they were trying to recruit, but he had too many he was too much of a dick.
Right.
They had to get rid of him.
The Exiles is what I was thinking of when he comes back, and
Yeah.
it's like a dimension hopping kind of stuff, or time stream hopping with some other people. It was pretty cool. I think Dazzler, fuck, that's a badass looking Dazzler.
Nice.
Like,
80s as fuck.
I like the new version of Dazzler they're doing now in the comics. It's
Where's
pretty
she-
cool.
where she looks pretty normal, like she just
Yeah.
looks like a normal chick now. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think like they've done a good job as far as like the writing and stuff with her. I like what they're doing with her now. Like she was like an agent for Shield for a while, and that was just pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember reading some of those. Dazzler to me will always be one of the characters from the X-Men arcade game, the 6-player arcade game.
Right. Nice.
Oh man, that's on my. If I had money, if that's one of the ones, if I could get any arcade machine I wanted, it would either be the 4-player Turtles in Time or the fucking 6-player dual screen X-Men. That
Oh,
thing's
man,
amazing.
yeah.
You know, I was just thinking,
Oh,
when you
yeah.
put up that Mimic card, I remember I memorized that one because there's a full sheet of this 94 Fleer Ultra on the back. It tells you that they're dead.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. It just says
fucking morbid.
deceased. It just says
Deceased.
deceased over there.
But
Yeah.
he's back in the current X Factor, which is pretty badass. That's one of those issues that it's on my pull list, and I pick it up every week or every
I
time it
just
comes out.
remember as a kid not knowing anything about this character and looking at this and going, "What the fuck is that? How
You
does that
remember the comics,
exist in the real world? Real name inapplicable."
In the comics, his best friend was this other
Yeah,
mutant, quote unquote. I think his name was just Doug.
it was Douglas Ramsey Cipher was the
All
character.
he could do was fucking like he could speak any language, and that was his mutant power. That is the shittiest mutant power I've ever heard of.
They actually make him pretty awesome in the new series because not only can he can speak any language, like he's an X Factor also with Warlock and Polaris and Gambit actually.
Are they supposed to be like older now?
No, I mean they look
Are they
about
still, like,
they're probably
teenagers?
they're not still teenagers definitely. They're probably in their 20s, early 30s,
Okay.
something like that, but he's pretty awesome because like he can also translate binary, which is obviously computer language, and so
Oh, that's
like
cool.
he's able to kind of manipulate technological
Like
things as
signals
well.
and things
Right,
like that?
exactly.
That's
So
cool.
they made his power
I-
actually relevant.
Nice.
I always like when a writer revisits an old stupid power or whatever,
fixes it.
and they fix it. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's a super awesome idea. Here's the long shot card, by the way.
Yep.
Oh god, that looks awful.
It's
Look
such
at
a
that guy.
He looks so stupid.
but he looks cool now though. Like he doesn't
This
have
is
the
the-
mullet anymore.
He's an ex-member of AC/DC. He looks like. So we should probably wrap this up.
2 seconds. I gotta show 2 things.
Awesome.
For one, I showed Jim this already, but Joseph, you gotta see it. This is what I was talking about. So
Your awesome Street Fighter comic.
those listening, I'm showing the Street Fighter comic #1, and you can see like the awesome faces on these people. Let me find Sagat with his rat trap face. There we go. Looks like a rat.
Okay. So right now, Jim is long shot. I am Mimic, and Chris is still Chris.
I was
He was
Sagat.
Sagat for a second, but right
I
now
was
he's
rat
Chris.
trap version of Sagat. So I got one thing that I wanted to show because I picked this up over Christmas break because I went to a they don't have these in every state, but guys, if you have a Goodreads in your state or Goodreads, what the fuck am I talking about? Beer. If you have a half price books in your state, that is the best place to find some old comics. And I found this bad boy, and everyone's gonna recognize this cover because it's one of the best X-Men covers they've ever had. So, yeah.
Is that
Awesome.
regular X-Men or is that Uncanny? I can't
So
see.
this was X-Men #1 when it went from Uncanny to actual X-Men.
Okay.
And the cover is like this huge fucking poster. It's like some of the most iconic X-Men X-Men artwork they've got.
Hey,
yeah,
Dice
exactly
Masters.
that. So hey, look, there's Magneto, and it goes all the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if you'll notice,
Fold out.
I've got this Dice Masters box, and it uses the same art. This is actually the big gravity feed that they put all the Dice Masters that I was talking about. And it's the
Nice.
exact same.
That is exactly
Yep.
the same thing. Yes.
It's my favorite X-Men cover of all time. It's so great. And on the inside of that, they have another poster, and I won't show the whole thing because it's ridiculous, but they even got Strong Guy.
Guido.
I'm starting to feel bad for whoever listens to this instead of watching it on YouTube.
Yeah, you might
This is
want to watch it.
Guys,
this is a
if
lot
you-
of visuals.
Subscribe
very
to our
visual episode.
YouTube. So yeah, this one this comic is my pride and joy. X-Men #1, with the fold out poster. I was so excited and I couldn't believe that I found it and I only paid like $1.
That's
It's one of those times where you see it and you think it's a joke, like you're shaking. You're like,
Yeah,
how
I
is
couldn't
this
believe it.
happening right now?
You know what's funny is they have some of their comics at that store they put behind glass and stuff like that too, and I see this one just out in the open. I was like, no fucking way, like no way.
Yeah.
Like that's some of the best.
that's
like,
that's when
artwork ever.
you're so surprised you look around you to see if anybody else has noticed. Like
Am I
you're-
getting punked? Yeah. Just expect someone else to show up and be like, no, it's mine. You're gonna fight him for it.
was
I
that
picked it up and I'm like Gollum. I'm like precious.
Yeah.
Like looking around, like fuck no.
that was Jim Lee art, right?
Yes, it was Jim Lee and story by Chris Claremont.
Yeah, nice man.
Yeah.
About as good as it gets.
Fucking great. Oh,
How-
I was so
well,
excited.
To that point, real quick, how do you feel about before we close out? How do you feel about the Wolverine costume that was on that cover versus the yellow and blue one? This is the
I've always
yellow
been
and
more- yeah.
brown one.
Yeah, this is
I've
the.
always been more of a Brown fan.
Yeah.
I like
Brown.
this one better.
Me
Yeah.
too.
You know
Me
what's
too.
really cool, and I wish they would have done this. They put that suit in. Fuck, was it Days of Future Past or was it
No, it was the Wolverine.
the Wolverine?
There's a deleted scene where at the end
Yeah,
he's
he opens
on
like
the
a
plane.
chest or
He
something.
opens the thing like they gave
And
him a
that suit's
suit,
in
and
there.
it's the brown and yellow suit, and it's awesome looking.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
really wish they would have kept that. Oh
I
my
just
god! it'd be
before Hugh Jackman is done with Wolverine, get him in the fucking ears. Like get him in the actual costume, please.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like the future Days of Future Past costume they had, but it's still just get him in the headpiece, please, just once.
I thought it was cool
Once.
that in Days of Future Past, like they really paid attention to detail. They gave him like the gray streaks in his hair and everything. Oh man, that was cool.
Yeah.
I really like Days of Future
Days
Past.
of Future Past bothered me a little bit because of how what's her name, Kitty Pryde, how she was able to
yeah.
somehow affect time with her.
This gave her a special power.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that was kind of a cop out because they could have easily put somebody else in there that could have done it. I mean, just having Kitty, all of a sudden she has this new power that's not explained. I was like,
It was one of those things where they didn't want to use Kitty Pryde to send her back because it was kind of a far-fetched idea, and it does kind of make sense that they would transfer her like Wolverine's consciousness.
right, because he's the
So
star
they
of
still-
the whole franchise. So
So they still wanted to make her involved in some way, but then they gave her a new power to do that, and that's kind of not the solution that should have happened.
yeah, what they should have done is maybe like combined her power with like, somebody that can do something else, time travel, something.
Yeah,
I don't
make
know.
it like a
They could have
tangent
done it
kind of
better.
thing. Yeah, like make it they use their power together, and then they can do this thing, which makes more sense.
yeah.
So yeah, that was comics.
I'm getting at there's nothing left in this bottle. Everything that's left is in this glass. So
Yeah, I totally got a pee. So let's
by the time we get to
figure
part
out
2,
who's
shit.
fighting. Who's gonna
Okay.
fight.
Who's gonna
to the death.
fight?
So, guys, we were gonna queue up our nerd apocalypse.
That's really hard to spell sometimes.
Fuck yeah, it is. I spelled it wrong the first several times I shot the idea to you guys.
Yeah, I'm always doing it wrong.
It's different every time. It doesn't matter anymore.
So
It's all of the above.
here we go, nerdocalypse. Jesus Christ.
Versus
This worked out perfect. This
Omega Red.
This is
Omega
fucking
Red
perfect.
versus
Jesus Christ.
We have two
Jesus.
giant fucking robots.
Oh man.
Two giant robots. This is amazing. Gypsy Danger from Pacific Rim versus fucking Unicron from Transformers.
Oh my god,
Oh shit.
that's awesome.
Shit. That's going to be awesome. All right, so that is going to be part 2. It's going to be Gypsy Danger versus Unicron. So, guys, get on our Facebook. It's facebook.com/Nerds on Tap podcast. I said it right, even though I'm kind of drunk. I'm pretty impressed that I said that. And let us know, who do you think's going to win? And, I mean, talk about the fight. We had some people last time actually talk about, how they think the fight would go down. And that was really freaking
our
cool.
star listener Tom a whole
Is that the Tom you stole Beard Science from?
Yes,
Thank
he
you,
was
Tom.
He
Yes.
was embarrassed because he doesn't write fan fiction, and but yeah, he wrote a whole thing for the Darth Vader versus Shredder, and it was a super well thought out,
was
awesome
good.
thing. We want more of that. Like
Yes.
that's what we
Yeah.
want. That's awesome.
We
We
need
love
guidance.
Yeah,
We need guidance. We don't know what we're doing.
we need ninja guidance.
So get on there. Let us know what you think. And you will definitely hear back from us. And we usually respond really quick because we don't have anything else better to do.
I have 2 kids, and I'm still like, boop, 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 boop.
Me and Joseph have full-time jobs and we're still just on Facebook at all times, like fucking around.
Yeah.
Jim, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm on Facebook right now.
Jesus
He's
Christ.
fucking around.
Well, if you're gonna pull that shit off, hang on 2 seconds, because I've been wanting to do this. So, do you know what Vine is?
What's a Vine?
Vine. So it's basically
Is that one of those newfangled things?
it is one of those newfangled things. It's like Twitter except it's with video.
Is that like Tweeter?
Is that
It's like Twitter,
the
but with video.
Instagrams?
Instagram.
Those
So-
Instagram crackers.
Guys, you're gonna be on the podcast.
I can't see what you're what
we're
you're showing
recording
us.
the podcast right now.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. A
Holy
Vine
shit,
video.
you're on the podcast.
Don't put this on the podcast.
Oh, it's going.
All right.
So
Yes.
stuff and things. We're gonna
Guess what?
have another episode. Next
two.
week you'll hear who wins: Unicron versus Gypsy Danger, or Gypsy Danger versus Unicron.
Yes, and our
whichever way.
word is infallible. Once we decide who wins, that's it.
Yep.
It's it.
No other
Did you say
opinions matter.
phallus?
Infall is
Foul.
And if iTunes ever fucking approves us, we'll be on iTunes. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this. So if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to our iTunes. Leave us a rating so we know how we're doing.
Make it 5
any
stars
feedback is
so
awesome.
that we can be
Yeah.
famous.
anything less than 5 stars is bullshit.
By any feedback is awesome. I mean 5 stars and only really nice comments.
No. Even if you hate us, rate us 5 stars, but put your hate in there. We'll read it on
Yeah.
the air.
Yeah,
Like-
that's perfect. Put 5 stars, but then just like make a comment that's like you're fucking stupid.
If you're gonna troll us, we need a photograph, and we need to know what bridge you live under, so we can verify that you are in fact a troll. Because only actual trolls control us. We also have
Cool.
YouTube, so subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's probably a good
Wow,
idea for
shit.
this episode because
We showed a
seriously.
lot of stuff, including penises, on this episode.
Yeah, this
So
episode's gonna
subscribe to our
be
YouTube
wall-to-wall
channel where that'll
dicks.
be blocked out.
this episode's gonna be like
wall to wall dicks.
5 minutes long without the visuals, so you might want to watch.
You're gonna wonder why are you even bothered with the audio because
It's gonna be the
nothing.
easiest edit I do, because it's just I'm gonna keep the
Boop,
intro
boop,
in,
boop,
and that's the
boop,
end.
boop.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about comic books, and that was comic books. Bye.
Check out next episode. All right,
right,
so that's it for this episode, guys. We'll see you next time. So I am Chris again.
I'm totally Jim.
And I'm totally Joseph still.
And he's still cold in Texas. And cheers, nerds. We'll see you later.
Cheers.
I need more beer.
This was Nerds on Tap. If you like what you saw or heard, make sure you follow us on that Twitter thing that all the kids are talking about at nerds_on_tap. And don't actually write the word underscore. That's not how Twitter works. And of course, we are on that Facebook thing, facebook.com/nerdsontap podcast. Thanks for listening. Nerds on Tap is part of the BS Excluded Network and the Slurred Nerd blog on Tumblr.